morning, dear learners. I welcome you to this video, which is of Module 3 of the MOOC that is titled as Gender and the Media. Today I will be discussing the Unit 9, that is Feminist Movements. In the last unit, that is Unit 8, we have discussed the concept of sex and gender, and we have understood the differences between these two terms and also what is meant by queer and the queer movement. So in this unit that is titled as Feminist Movements, we will be focusing on the types of feminist movements that have been existent since the historical past and how it has evolved as in the form of different movements, different perspectives, and also you can say different branches of feminism. And then we will move on to the various waves of feminism. So let us start by discussing first what is meant by the term feminism. Feminism is a movement, or you can say an ideology, a philosophical ideology that focuses on a particular perspective, and it showcases how the feminist movement or how the perspective has come up regarding women's rights. So feminism is a movement to end sexism, sexist exploitation and oppression of a particular gender, that is the female and also the other gender. So earlier it mainly focused on the women's rights, and later it has shifted to become more inclusive in nature by taking into consideration various classes, caste, and also it become more inclusive by showcasing the rights of the third gender. So feminism is a complex notion that has vast difference in meaning and in connotation for people spanning generations, across generations, ethnic identities, sexual orientations, social classes, nationality, and other identities. Feminism is not a static notion. Rather, it evolves with us throughout our lives and is shaped by the various lenses we use to view the world at large, and most importantly, ourselves, how we look into our rights and how we look into the rights of the other persons. So, why feminism has come into being? First of all, let us understand the concept of gender roles. The gender role theory focuses on differences between the sexes, or which we rather use the term genders, based on ascribed roles as a result of social norm, then gender socialization, and we develop skills and behavior as per the society's expectations. So we see that in understanding gender roles, the concept of social norms is very important, and how since the time of our birth we are gender socialized. The feminist perspectives believes that gender roles are rigid in nature, and it takes quite a lot of time to bring in more changes and to become adaptive in nature with the current times. The functionalist perspective on gender roles suggests that gender roles exist to maximize the social efficiency and create a division of labor. For example, what a woman does or what a man should do is all defined by our gender socialization, and functionalists believe that that division is extremely important in society to maintain equilibrium. On the other hand, the feminist movement or the feminist critics say that it takes the position that functionalism neglects the suppression of women within the family structure, because it is talking about more division of labor based on sex only, and that cannot be role reversal in the society. So that is a wrong notion according to the feminist movement or the feminist thinkers. So intersectionality of gender discrimination further deepens the social inequality that exists in the society. Now, by the term intersectionality, we mean that when a woman belongs to a lower class, lower caste, or we consider some races to be less superior compared to other races, then that women is facing discrimination on various grounds. So that is known as intersectionality. Intersectionality, rigid gender roles, and exploitation of women have all contributed to the rise of feminism. And now if we focus on the feminist movements, we will see that different types of feminist movements or feminism perspectives have evolved as women faced varied forms of oppression influenced by historical, cultural, and social contexts. Early movements like liberal feminism found on political and legal rights, while individualism or industrialization and capitalism highlighted class inequalities leading to socialist feminism. So that is how the origin of liberal feminism and social feminism started. The rise of intersectionality addressed the overlapping or cross discrimination based on identities like race, class, and gender as compared to traditional feminism, and often excluded marginalized groups. For example, when I will discuss the first wave of feminism, we will see that mostly the white European women and American women were involved in fighting for the rights of the right to vote. It was mainly a white women movement. Later, when we go through the advancement of the various waves of feminism, we will see that it became more inclusive in nature, that included the rights of also the colored women, and what we call black feminism also started after that. So that is how the feminist movement have evolved over time since the historical past, and later came the feminist movement types that are known as cultural and ecofeminism, that emerged to challenge the patriarchal dominance in culture and environmental exploitation. Globalization, post-colonial realities of exploitation, and how women have been discriminated in the colonial, and colonial and post-colonial regions. That was also studied or is an important branch of feminism. So, globalization and post-colonial realities inspired feminist perspectives addressing non-Western issues, because we know that there is a paradigm that we is considered that the Western thought is given more priority compared to the other regions of the world. So this post-colonial realities and globalization perspective of feminists criticize that everything is not always Western oriented, and we also have regional and local issues compared in the East as well as in the Orient regions of the world. Each wave or type of feminism reflects different experiences, ensuring feminism adapts to the changing dynamics of inequality worldwide. So earlier it was only about political rights, and later we will see that in the movements and in the waves of feminism, it became more inclusive, it became more sensitive to the other issues of the world. Therefore, that is how the feminist movement has evolved in the history, and how it has taken the recent form that it is in the present times. So gender discrimination persists both at home and in the workplace, sometimes silently or sometimes directly, that we can observe. It is experienced in shaping our everyday lives. At home, women are often burdened with caregiving and household duties, while men are expected to be sole breadwinners and sitting the potential growth of both. So that is another burden that the male gender faces in the society, that bread earning or earning for the family is always expected only from the male members. In the workplace, women face wage gaps, glass ceiling effect, which I will explain you, the concept of glass ceiling, and fewer leadership opportunities, while men who step into nurturing roles often encounter judgment and stigma that the male gender is not going out of the house or earning for the family. So that is another stigma that is attached to those who individually wish to be caregivers of their child. So these rigid gender roles don't just limit to individual growth, they confine entire families' progress towards equality. So that is a major challenge. Feminism criticizes these rigid gender roles and discrimination that exists both at home, also at the workplace. Now coming to the types of feminist movements. First, let us start with the concept of liberal feminism. It mainly focuses on achieving equality through political and legal reform. Its main goal is to secure equal rights in education, employment, voting, that is political right, and property ownership. So the methods that it employs are advocacy, policy changes, and working within the existing systems and challenging the economic as well as political policies that exist in a society to become more supportive towards women's progress. One example of the liberal feminism that started in the historical era is the suffrage movement or the right to vote movement. It mainly campaigned for equal pay, and gender discrimination laws were brought into play, and this was one of the main focus of liberal feminism. So if we see that it has its origin starting from the suffrage movement that started in the United States, and then it spread across the world, where major developing and developed nations, though they claim to be developed nations, women didn't have the right to vote. So this was a challenge that was fought for by the feminists, and they all came together and started a movement that is now termed as the liberal feminism. Radical feminism, the second type. It mainly focuses on addressing the root causes of gender inequality, which are often linked to patriarchy and systematic oppression. So here we know that there are institutions, social institutions of the society. They may be, religion, education, marriage, family, kinship, okay, and they are social institutions which have their own social norms. So radical feminism criticizes those practices and perspectives of the social institutions that directly or indirectly oppress women or bring about rules and practices that lead to gender oppression. So the main objective of radical feminism is overturning patriarchal structures and redefining social norms. The methods that are employed in radical feminism are sometimes considered to be very radical in nature. It focuses on direct action, that is, sometimes a volatile social movement maybe, or challenging traditional gender roles and advocating for revolutionary changes. So that is the main feature of radical feminism, and that is why it is termed as radical. The examples of radical feminism are movements against domestic violence, sexual harassment, and reproductive oppression, or fighting for the rights of reproduction, or right to when a woman decides not to give birth or to give birth, that is also, it is said to be her sole right, because it is her body and she has to make the choice and should not be enforced by the society. So radical feminism, you see that it is more radical in nature, and it targets the traditional gender roles and advocates for the rights of women. The third type here is Marxist or socialist feminism. Marxist or socialist feminism, as the term suggests, is linked to gender inequality, to class oppression and the capitalist system. The main objectives of socialist feminists were to achieve equality by addressing economic exploitation, to charge against economic exploitation, and restructuring societal systems. The methods used here were advocacy for workers' rights, social welfare policies, and collective action against exploitation by the capitalist forces. So as we know, because it has reference to Marxist or socialist feminism, we know that it is mainly talking about class oppression. And when, if you remember, I talked about the concept of intersectionality. So it is said that the women workforce were the most discriminated or oppressed in that particular period of industrialization. So here we see that the feminists who are of the perspective of, say, Marxist and socialist feminists, they say that here women's rights should be fought for from the perspective of the working class. And Marx said that women are actually working in two shifts, first in the industry and then also at home. So the Marxist feminism say that there is double exploitation of women, both as the workers and also as a working lady at home. So she is basically working in double shifts, which is a very intense form of exploitation that the women is facing. One example is campaign for paid parental leave, affordable childcare, and equal pay. So Marxist socialist feminism fought for these issues. They campaigned for paid parental leave and affordable childcare and equal pay for both the male and the female. So till now, if you see, we are talking about the types of feminism. Hardly any of them are talking about the other gender, right? The LGBTQ plus community, hardly there is mention of the rights of the other gender. So next we come to intersectional feminism. Here now we will talk about how feminism is gradually becoming more inclusive in nature. The intersectional feminism, the word intersectional, as I told you, it itself suggests that we will talk about discrimination based on various grounds. So the focus here is mainly on recognizing the interconnectedness of race, class, gender, sexuality, ability or disability, and other identities. So now we see there is more inclusivity of the rights of all genders. The main goal of intersectional feminism is addressing multiple forms of oppression simultaneously. So it's not that it is focusing only on women's rights. It also should focus on the rights of male, where there is cases of exploitation against the male, and also the exploitation of the other gender. So methods here employed are advocacy for marginalized groups of the society and inclusive activism. Now we see that movements addressing racism, then movements that support LGBTQ plus rights, that is the queer community, and disability justice within the feminist framework. So we know that ability and disability are also important issues of the society, and there is a section that we term as persons with disability who are facing discrimination on various grounds. So here the intersectional feminism takes into consideration the rights of the LGBTQ plus community, the queer community, and the persons with disability, and fights for the justice and rights of these communities who have often been exploited in the society. The next type here is ecofeminism. The word ecofeminism itself suggests that we are focusing here more on the environmental rights. So it focuses on connecting environmental issues with women's rights and the exploitation of nature. It is said that women are very much connected to nature, and that that patriarchal forces and industrializations have always been on the verge of exploiting nature and beyond its capability. So ecofeminism focuses on how women are affected when there is higher exploitation of nature, and it focuses on how this exploitation of nature should be stopped. Promoting sustainability and challenging systems of domination over both women and the environment is the main goal of ecofeminism. The methods employed here by the ecofeminists are grassroots activism, where we take into participation all the community members, promoting eco-friendly policies or fostering, passing of policies that are environment friendly, that are, for the protection of the environment in particular localized regions, as well as, at the national level we can look at how environmental protection laws are passed. And feminism plays an important role here. Women play an important role here, and they are known as ecofeminists. So it opposes environmental degradation, and women play a major role in this. Campaigns against deforestation, water privatization, and pollution are also important, aspects or issues that are often dealt with by the ecofeminists. So they all advocate for the rights of the environment, the nature, and protection of nature against exploitation. And the next category of feminist movement or feminist perspective is post-colonial feminism. Now, as we know that there is superior races and inferior races, as prejudiced, or as how people perceive certain races based on the color of the skin and the features. So racism exists in the society since historical times, and we see that in the colonial history or in colonialism, the races or the discrimination against races is an important aspect of colonialism and colonial exploitation. So post-colonial feminism started in those places or by those feminists who have had the effect or the negative impact of colonialism and exploitation. So post-colonial, that is after colonialism has happened, a region is left with a lot of exploited situation in the particular geographical area. So post-colonial feminism focuses on examining the impact of colonialism and globalization on women in non-Western contexts, because we see that colonialism was mostly done by the Western countries, the so-called developed nations, and they took over the lesser developed regions of the world and exploited the natural resources and the human resources of those regions, and they were finally left in a very exploited form. So this post-colonial feminism has actually taken birth after the post-colonial era, and it focuses on addressing issues specific to women in formerly colonized areas or marginalized societies. For example, in India, for example, in the African countries. So post-colonial feminism started in these regions. Examples are movements addressing cultural imperialism, land rights, and indigenous women's empowerment. So how women played a role in nationalist movement, in fighting for the rights of their country, and how indigenous culture is important, and securing the cultural rights and the property rights of that region was the main focus of post-colonial feminism. So women played an important role in this fight for the rights of the people in general, as well as for the women folk. The last category that we see here is black feminism. Black feminism, as the name itself suggests, it addresses the intersection of race and gender oppression. So as I told you, the example of how a person or women with color or women of color, that we are sometimes the word derogatorily used is black or the Negro, we see that black feminism or Negro is a derogatory term that has been used by the colonizers or the what we call the superior white races of the world. So addressing the intersection or the discrimination faced by women of race, of the so-called inferior race, and gender oppression, because being a woman, she is further subjected to oppression compared to a male person. So main goal of black feminism is advocating for the rights of black women and combating racism with feminism. So we see that fighting for the right of a person who is discriminated based on race as well as based on the sex of the person. So methods used here are creating platforms for black voices and activism specific to their experiences of high exploitation and discrimination faced both during the colonial as well as the post-colonial era. So we see that these different types of feminism have all interconnectedness or connection based on the experiences of exploitation. So examples here of black feminism are the work of organizations like Combahee, River Collective and various other that have talked about the rights of the black women. Each type of feminism contributes to the broader goal of achieving gender equality, but does so by emphasizing different issues, ideologies, and strengths. Many feminists today draw from the multiple frameworks, recognizing the complexity of gendered oppression. So these are the types of feminist movement that we have discussed. Let us move forward to how the birth and rise of feminism started, that is the waves. So there are the first wave, the second wave, the third wave, the fourth wave that we have seen, and also it is said that presently we are experiencing the fifth wave of feminism. The types of feminist movements that we have discussed, you will all see their reflection in the different waves of feminism that I am going to discuss now. The first wave of feminism started in the early 1830s. It started in the industrial society in Europe and America, advocated equal rights, and it mainly started for women, the suffragette movement, making the right to vote through organized protest. So mainly focuses on structural empowerment of women, political participation and property rights. So there are, if you see, you can categorize empowerment into two types. The one is structural empowerment, one is psychological empowerment. So structural empowerment says that on the outwardly and direct form we can see that a woman is earning or not, is educated or not, whether she is in a particular position in the society. So those are known as structural empowerment. Psychological empowerment refers to those forms of empowerment where a woman is individually so empowered to make her own decisions that she is considered to be a true powerhouse and shows that she has her own right to make the own decisions of her life. So that is psychological empowerment. In the first wave of feminism, it mainly focused on structural empowerment, talking about right to vote, political right, political participation and property rights, that focused on structural empowerment. The second wave, after the World War II started or it got over, the right to economic participation, reproductive rights, the personalist political movement was started against domestic violence, marital rape and legalizing social issues and social crimes punishable under the law, equal pay for equal work. So these were the main focuses of the second wave of feminism. It focused both on structural empowerment as well as psychological empowerment of women. And the second wave nurtured both these aspects of empowerment, and they talked about their right to decide on the reproductive aspects as well as to fight against domestic violence, to fight against violence done by the life partner, and that is how the second wave focused on the other aspects also. The third wave of feminism started in the 1990s. It became more inclusive in nature. As I told you, we had also discussed about intersectional feminism, and it became more inclusive in nature. This wave of feminism, that is the third one, where it included women of color, the lower class, and the third gender rights. The concept of equal pay for equal work was also one of the main focus here. Gender theorists like Judith Butler said that this paradigmatic shift of the feminism in her books that is titled as The Gender Trouble in the 1990s and The Bodies That Matter of 1993 focused on this aspect of inclusivity and also the third gender. The third wave witnessed the emergence of movements such as the queer, the transgender politics, which take an interest in the intersection of gender and sexuality here. So third wave, as we see, we can see that intersectional feminism, then also black feminism, all these are part of the third wave of feminism. The fourth wave, we all know about the Me Too movement. So it sees that this fourth wave of feminism basically started with the digital era. It began in around 2012, focusing on empowerment of women, use of internet tools, use of electronic media, and focus on intersectionality of discrimination. And its main objective was to fight against body shaming of women and the third gender, the rape culture, and sexual harassment. So Me Too is the best example of the fourth wave of feminism. The fifth wave is said to be experienced by us presently. It mainly focuses on activism for gender rights, and it is much more digital in nature. So use of digital media and how news spreads and how movement spreads digitally is the main activity or main focus that we see of the fifth wave of feminism. So that is all for today. So in this particular session, we have discussed about what is meant by the concept of feminism, why feminism came into being, and how it gave rise to the feminist perspective, the historical cases of exploitation and era of exploitation that has finally given shape to the ideology of feminism. Then we have discussed about the types of feminist movements that have existed since the historical past, and now we have just discussed about the waves of feminism, the first, second, third, fourth, and the fifth wave of feminism. So thank you so much. See you again.